am Cindy Collier. I wanted to share something this morning, a quick lesson on the book of Jeremiah. I love that book. I love Jeremiah. I love that book. I love this chapter and I love this story. It is out of Jeremiah 18, verses 3 and 4. Now, it is a story of the potter. And when we read this, think about the potter is God. The clay, that's our lives. Very simple. But God uses object lessons all the time. So let's read this. Verse 3. So I went down to the potter's house, and I saw him working at the wheel. Verse 4. But the pot he was shaping from the clay was marred in his hands. So the potter formed it into another pot, shaping it as seemed best to him. There are so many lessons in this. And the first lesson, very simple, is that we are all broken. Every one of us. I don't care what we seem like in public to other people. We're all broken. There's no way that we can live 60, 70, 80 years and not be broken because of the environment, the sinful world that we live in. We're all broken for some reason. But the potter knows that. God knows that. Look at the very beginning. We're going to take this piece by piece. As Jeremiah saw this, so I went to the potter's house and I saw him working at the wheel. God was already, the potter was already working with that clay. He was already working on that wheel. He was sitting there with his foot and the wheel was going around and he had the clay in the center. But think about the clay. The potter, if you know anything about potters and the way that they work with clay, there are specific purposes for specific kinds of clay. There are all kinds of clay. There's not just one kind of clay and the potter chooses it and he can make anything he wants out of it. It doesn't work that way. There are different kinds of clay, just like there are different people, different personalities, different skill sets, different intellects, different perspectives, different environments in which we live, and different purposes. But the potter knows when he selects that clay off that shelf, he knows the kind of clay it is, the environment that it's going to be used in, what it can become, and what it takes to get to its purpose. The potter has that. The clay doesn't know. It's just sitting there. But the potter knows. And when we become broken, the potter knows how to restore. Let's look at verse 4. What happens? It says, but the pot that he was shaping from the clay was marred in his hands. It was interesting. The pot, or the clay, did not get marred by falling off the shelf. Jeremiah didn't come in and that clay just fell off the shelf and got marred. No, that's not what happened. It didn't get marred by the potter slamming it to the ground. God doesn't do that. It didn't get marred by something falling on it. It got marred while it's still in the potter's hands. Sometimes things in our life happen. Our health can decline. Our mental health can decline. We can have emotional traumas, natural disasters, spiritual pain, spiritual hurt. All of these things can happen to us, but they're not happening to us while we're someplace else. They're happening while we're in the potter's hands. And that was an important lesson for Jeremiah to see. It's an important lesson for us to remember. Things just do not arbitrarily happen without the potter knowing it, without God knowing it. He knows. He saw it. As that clay was marred, God was watching. He saw it on his wheel because his hands never left that wheel. The potter doesn't put the clay there and stand back and just hope for the best, because that clay would just spin around and probably spin right off that wheel. The second lesson is that restoration takes time. God will restore, but restoration takes time. Look at verse 4. But the pot he was shaping from the clay was marred in his hands. So the potter formed it into another pot. Now, he never took it off the wheel. In fact, he investigates, he watches, he looks, he knows the kind of clay that he chose. He knows the needs of the kind of clay, the kind of heat that it needs to be under, the amount of water that it needs, the kind of environment it needs to form it. He knows all of those things. He knows those things, but it takes time. It takes time if the clay is damaged while in his hands. He can't just automatically reform it because then it's not sturdy. If you throw that pot back together, that foundation's not going to be set. It's not going to be strong enough to withhold, to fulfill its purpose. The potter has to work gently with this clay. And the clay does not know what the clay can become. The potter does. The potter knows what the clay needs. He has in mind what it is to become based on the kind of clay that it is. And he examines that clay. He takes the time to examine it, just like God does us. He's always watching us. He's always watching. And he saw that clay when it became damaged. He wasn't taking a coffee break. He saw that clay. And when he investigates it, what happened? What exactly happened to that clay? There could be rocks in that clay. There could be tiny pebbles of sand, tiny grains of sand. There could be a little stick in that clay. It could be too dry. It could be too cold in that room, too hot in that room, the environment. He investigates to see what exactly happened. He watches. It did not get out of his control. Oh, that happened while I wasn't watching. No, that doesn't work that way. God watches us. He knows what goes on in our lives. And he is going to restore. That's what he does. He restored that clay. Now that clay must be flexible under his hands. His hands are gentle, but sometimes his hands have to be firm, just like it is with our own lives. His hands have to be firm, pressing. When he gets those pebbles out, he has to press that clay and pull that out. That hurts. That hurts. The impurity that is in our lives, to get it out, for that potter to get that out, that hurts. But that clay must be flexible enough under the potter's hands to allow him to do that. If that impurity stays in there, it will not become the best that it can become, the best that he has designed. But that takes time. We have to surrender under the hands of the potter. Take in the water that he gives us. Take it in. If the clay does not take in that water, it becomes dry and it will be destroyed. Take in that feeding. Take in that teaching from God's word. Take in the help that is given by the people around you. Take that in. If he is wiping too much water, there's excess, let him take things out of your life. So God knows. The clay doesn't know what it can become. So restoration takes time. It cannot be rushed. And he did not patch this up. He didn't just throw some clay back on it and patch it up. He reworked it into another pot. Verse 4, read the last part of that. But the pot he was shaping from the clay was marred in his hands. So the potter formed it into another pot, shaping it as seemed best to him. Now, he didn't take that same damaged pot and just slap some more clay on it, pour some water on it, and let's just fix this. Let's see if it'll work. No, he doesn't do that. He formed it into another pot as seemed best to him. He knew, he had experience. He watched that pot. He knew exactly what happened to get it damaged. It was still in his hands. He knew the kind of clay it was. He knew what it wanted to become, what its purpose could be, what kind of fiery kiln that it needed to go in to burn off the impurities. He needed to pick out the impurities. He needed to get it back center. It may have gotten off center, and you've seen pots that get off center of clay, and it just goes around, goes crazy, and just flies everywhere. He may have taken you and that clay and picked you up and put you back in the center of his will. That hurts. That hurts. It hurts sometimes to be lifted up out of the environment that you were in, off center, picked up and put back in the center. Tell me that's not traumatic. I've been through that. It's hard. But that clay has to be pliable enough and flexible enough and surrender and giving enough to allow the potter to do what the potter does. So the potter knows best. But God is faithful. That is our third lesson. We are all broken. Restoration takes time, but God is faithful. In the end, it's the potter that is in control. It is God that has all knowledge, skill, resources, wisdom. He knows what you can become, but he knows what it's going to take to get you there. He is not going to patch it up, throw it together because he doesn't really care. And that potter wanted to get out of that potter's house. No. God is faithful. God is patient. God is compassionate. But we have to give. We have to be flexible. We have to be willing to surrender that impurity that's in our lives as God takes his gentle but firm hands and pulls it out, because he is faithful. He restored that pot into another pot as he saw fit. Now, our expectation of what restoration looks like sometimes is different than what God actually has in store. If our expectations were met, just like we planned it out, that clay just planned out what it wanted to become, it might not have been what the clay could actually become. That restoration takes God's control and God's wisdom to do it. And it might be different from what we expected, but that's okay. God knows best. God knows best. It is his job. It is God's job, not the clay's job. The clay has no brain. It can't think. It doesn't have a clue. We're like sheep. God knows. He will restore our lives because we are all broken. Restoration takes time. If we will give, we will surrender and allow him to take control. And he is faithful. He will do it from the inside out. He starts from the bottom up. Just like healing. Healing takes place from within. Sometimes it leaves a scar, but that scar is to remember that he was faithful. He is faithful. So I hope that encouraged you today. We are all broken. If you were in a period of restoration, restoration takes time. But God is faithful.